Welcome, new listeners, new viewers, to a new podcast of No Ball, All Talk. And when I say that, it will be football related, but we will cut through all the bullshit you might see and clickbaiting across other platforms. We're getting straight into it. And this week, I'm joined by Mo Spencer and Chris Smith. Boys, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, man.
Good,
I'm
man.
good. Happy to be here. Got to be fun.
Getting
Oh, yeah,
straight
you
into
all
it,
right?
obviously. Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. I'm loving it, mate. Listen, we talk football all the time, and everyone will sit around the table and talk football. And I've heard multiple opinions from different people, and Mo being one of them, who's vocal on Twitter, slamming people, or X as it were, slamming people for the clickbait nonsense, as amongst other opinions that come out every now and then from various platforms. So I had to get him on straight into this one as well. Chris, I've seen yours. You've seen two sides to football these days because you've been a player and you've been like an owner or a chairman of a football club. So you probably see it from two sides of the coin. So we had to get you involved in this as well. But I want to jump straight into the plaudits of PSG, and this is where I want to get sort of the two opinions of you guys. They won the Champions League in a new format, the league system, as it were. I think they were 15th when it came to it by the time they played all 8 games. They've gone on to win the Champions League. So I'm going to flip two questions to you. One, what do you think of the new format? Is it worth the ink that it's written on, basically, in terms of where you finish now in this league format? And do you feel like PSG have built this team just through the sheer amount of money they've chucked at it, or has it been an actual project over in Paris? So I'm going to throw that to you, Chris, to kick us off.
Yeah, good question. I'm still getting used to the new format. I wouldn't say I like it, and I wouldn't say I dislike it. I like it because it's made the Champions League better. It's made the Europa League worse, in my opinion, right? Because there's now no drop downs. It's now the elite of the elite now facing it off. I do like the group format because it's our group versus their group, and you're trying to keep out. And at the moment, I'm struggling to understand who I'm playing against or what's going on. And someone goes from 15th, goes to 8th, and then down to 20th, and then I'm just like, it's algebra to me. That's one on the Champions League. It didn't excite me as it did previously, is what I will say. But I do like all the best teams in Europe. And I do feel a bit hard done by the, no disrespect, the Villarreals, the people that like win the Europa year in, year out, that they won't have that experience, and they probably haven't got the money, the budget, or the players to go on and have a great Champions League experience. For them, probably success will be quarterfinals, semi-finals. They're not expected to go and win on it. PSG, that one. Look, I'm an Arsenal fan, right? We saw them very early on in the season. Was it 2-0 or something like that? 2-1. We beat them. I think they've had 2 seasons in one season. It was a poor start on their behalf. But Enrique's done a phenomenal job and I think he's recruited well in January, and they've gone on and had an incredible season. The Champions League, I'd probably say that is a telltale story of, I think Arsenal fan probably being a bit biased. The semi-final and quarter-final for them against PSG was quite tight. The final was a bit of a walkover. We can come into the final a little bit later. But I do think at times you've got to make your own luck, and I think they did do that. I think they made their own luck a little bit in the quarter-final. I think they were on the ropes for the last 10 minutes against Villa. And then when they played Arsenal, it could have, Donnarumma's pulled out an unbelievable worldie after worldie after worldie, and he's kept him in it. Any other game, any other keeper, those go in. But I suppose it's those smaller details of what how you pick up a trophy and how you don't.
Fair. Mo, similar opinions or different?
Yeah, in terms of the new format, I liked it. I think it's all right. I like a bit of change every now and then. In terms of it made there was more excitement. Like one of the nights we got like about 3 laptops, we had TVs going, we had all the games running at once. And that aspect of it, you didn't get that in the Champions League group stages. So at one stage, PSG was out, Man City was out, and then they were back in and all of that. So that from that aspect of it, I thought it was a bit better. What I did think was a bit unfair though was things like Liverpool getting PSG, but in the same breath, that wasn't unfair on the competition. That was just because of how PSG played in
Mm.
it. That wasn't like that was nothing. They didn't expect PSG to finish 15th or wherever they finished. Do you know what I mean? So that wasn't on the competition. That was just more on how PSG played. So but overall, I think I enjoyed it. A lot of people complaining about it. Apart from the little change where I think the higher up in the league you finish, you should get the home leg second in the knockout phase. Apart from that, I think it was a fine competition. You get to see big games early in the season, and as PSG showed, you might not start off great, but if you have a good second half of the season, you can come through still. So I thought the format was fine in my opinion, but I know there's a lot of differing views on it.
And do you think PSG were deserved winners?
Oh mate, let's be honest. We can't lie to ourselves. Footballing wise, yeah, after Christmas, we ain't seen that sort of level since Barcelona. That's the reality.
They're just
That's
one
the
of the most
reality.
complete teams, in my opinion, aren't they? Like
Yeah,
all over, they look. Their midfield three are just.
yeah. I mean, it was
You know,
just
when you talk about Busquets and Iniesta, like we're talking that level with them
yeah,
three.
yeah. That's
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 what
what I
they were
mean.
playing.
Dominating the ball. Um, They had quick wingers. They went a bit old school with the wingers. The wingers were all perfect. What I noticed with them is whether it was Barcola, Doué, Dembele, or who's the other one? Who am I missing? The fourth one,
Yeah,
Kvaratskhelia,
yeah, I can never see his name.
where they interchanged, but there was literally no change in defending, in attacking, in the build up. They were always the same. And if you got a team working that well together, you can't argue with them winning it. They were by far. Arsenal got close because I think we did, especially in the second leg, we did a lot of things that PSG didn't like. People were complaining, oh, they were going long, they were doing the long throws. They're all things PSG don't like. So why wouldn't we do them? Do you understand what I'm saying? And then, but all the other teams in reality, like Liverpool at PSG, got absolutely dominated. Absolutely. At Anfield, it was a little bit different. Um, us at the Emirates, to be fair, the first 30, I was sitting there thinking, there is no way. If they get one or two, we're in huge trouble here for 4 or 5. Do you know what I mean? And then after we had a chance to look at them and then identify their weaknesses, I think we was much better, but we still probably didn't deserve to win that game. And then Inter Milan, what you saw in the Inter Milan, sorry, let me just finish this bit. But what you saw in that Inter Milan game is perfection. That's their system working perfectly against the team that thought it would be all right to do a low block and counter. And they just got absolutely taken to the cleaners by quicker, younger, more well organized players.
Yeah.
No, I think that's fair. I pretty much agree with most of your points there, right? I think Donnarumma against Arsenal, unbelievable. Even against Villa, like the last 10 minutes, I think they saved 2 or 3 off the line, if I remember rightly, and that could have completely changed it, right? I think aggregate ended up 4-3 or 3-2 or something like that. Arsenal, I think there was one where Odegaard's got it cleared off the line, he came straight back up. Donnarumma's made 2 back-to-back saves, unbelievable. I think someone nearly slapped it top bins, and Donnarumma on his 90-foot length of arms just pulled it out, just extended it out. And I was like, how? Like those are the differences, right? And probably a bold statement, but I think, and I'm not a part of this goalkeeper union. I don't like it, and I always wanted a fat left back community, but there was never one. I think he's in there for Ballon d'Or. I don't think PSG win it without him. And everyone's saying Dembele this or Doué or even the guy from Barcelona. It pains me to say it. I think he deserves his credit, because without him, probably doesn't win the quarterfinal, probably doesn't win the semi-final, or it'll be a lot closer. Definitely on both of them. And just Inter were just shocking. I watched it back before this because I knew we were speaking about it, and I thought, let me just go over the goals. their shape was dreadful. Like, I'm talking step 6 shape. It was awful. If you look at their first 2 goals, I don't know where. I can't even remember who the Inter left back is. I don't know where he is.
DeMarco. Yeah,
Wandering, gone for lunch.
Mm.
Like, didn't come out today. And then when it's 2-0 like that, or 2 very similar goals, when you've got your right back standing in the middle of the goal, and if he misses it, you've got another player to the right of him that's also going to score it, because your left back stuck in centre mid. And bearing in mind, they're playing 5 at the back. They're playing a 5-3-2, I think it was, waiting for the counter. So you've got 2
it was a
defenders.
surprise Chris. It was a surprise though, because I look at the Inter Barca game when it was very much like basketball, like both just attacking each other. I think this is where I have to give so much credit to PSG, because they just didn't even allow that to happen. You know, PSG
rotations and press was a joke.
Yeah, I mean, PSG just attacked, but there was no counter punch. Do you know what I mean? Whereas Barca Inter, it was like Barca would go and attack, then Inter would have a go, and it would just be like who then scored. You know, it was always going to be who scores the most. But when it came down to this game, I think Mo just touched on it there. Attacking wise, you had 5 or 6 players that were in. You know, that was you deal with that, and we'll sit back and deal with everything else. And they countered that and then dealt with that. Whereas previously that wasn't happening. Obviously, when it was Barca and Inter, it was almost they just sent 11 players forward and the other team sent 11 players forward. So I think tactically, Enrique got this so right against Inter.
Good manager, Enrique. Good manager.
And I love that everything happens for a reason, right? The Tifo, whatever they call it, of him and his daughter. Like, it's just written in the stars. So, like, let's just give him what he's gone through. It's just
he deserves it.
Exactly. Like,
you know, one more point I've got on that. Yeah, one more point I've got on that. PSG's route to the final is, and even the final, there were big performances from big players in each of the games. Like when we think Hakimi scored, did he score 16 round of 16, quarterfinal and semi-final? Right back. Donnarumma, quarterfinal, semi-final, final. Big you know what I mean? Big performances from your big players. Dembele, you know, Kvaratskhelia. I remember at the Emirates, he showed up, you know, and you need that. You need them big performances to get you over the line, and they definitely got them.
They're all about, like, it's interesting to say that, Mo, because, you know, everyone knows PSG is this team that are just very, like, counter break. Get the ball out to him, and Kevstava and Doué and Dembele, they'll do it. I'll give him props. What Kevstava was doing off the ball to trap back Saka, even in the final, they're 4-0 up and he's run 70 yards back to win the ball. You're 4-0 up, you're cruising. And what amazed me most about them, 2 things I'd probably say, is the work rate off the ball. You don't see that very often, and being a team, and their rotations. You can't, like Dembele dropping in at like pretty much CDM at times to pick up the ball. You can't track when those movements are happening, and then it essentially ends up being a 5v5, right? Inter have put 5 at the back. Then you've got Dembele, Doué, Kvaratskhelia, all these players like now, and then their 2 centre midfielders, Ruiz, whatever his name is, like now playing on the back. It's 5v5. You're waiting for something to happen. It's then ultimately defense versus attack.
Yeah, and they got so many good 1v1 players. So many good 1v1 players as well. So you can't even go man for man, because you'll definitely get beaten then. Do you know what I mean? It's difficult, man. Very difficult. Going to be interested to see how people take them on, like in the coming seasons.
I think it comes down to a couple of things though, as well as the belief that they bought it. So the belief of the players obviously believe in the system, but again, and this is, I don't like to talk about Arsenal that often because it ends up just getting into just disarray. But they definitely invested in January, and you just mentioned one of the players they invested in January that's ultimately played a big piece in why they won the Champions League. And their turn of form, because they weren't performing well in the Champions League. That's the reason they would have fit 15th in the first place. And when we played them and beat them 2-0 at the Emirates, I was like, they're well off it. It's not close. But what a big jump between then and January, right? Obviously, after making that investment, moving players on that obviously didn't believe in it. Obviously, previous we spoke off air about non-league, and certain players might just go and play for a bit of money and the prestige of being at a certain club. Well, you look at that, was Neymar, Messi, that was Mbappe. They were there potentially for the wrong reasons. Really, at this point, he's now got players in that. By the way, they're still elite. They are still elite, but now they've put themselves there. But now they're in a position where actually I'm not the big fish. I'm just there with more elite players, and they're more of a collective as a team. So I say fully deserved. Yeah, on another day we can all talk about that. There's all that you come off the pitch and go, you lose, and they're like, oh, they weren't that good. I hate that saying, but PSG were that good all the way through.
Yeah.
Don Rumours, yes, okay, he made some saves, and can another day. Well, you have to have the best goalkeeper in goal. That's the reason he's there. He's just doing his job to the elite level. So at the end of the day, we should have had better finishers to beat him. Do you know what I mean? I look at Martinelli. Yeah. Martinelli's not the best finisher. So for me, PSG fully deserved. In terms of the format, just to sort of close on this one, the format, yes and no. I like it because the Champions League is the Champions League. We've already got teams in there that are finishing 17th next year or 16th next year, that are going to be in this. If you're in that league, in the Champions League, you remain in the Champions League. The Europa now needs to remain as it is, because I do like that, because if you're winning the Europa League, you're the best of the next best. That's how it should remain. The amount of times that those winners come in and they were Champions League level, what's the point? What's the point of being in Europa? The prize money's not that good.
That's why you've got the Conference League, though. Like, that's the crap teams have an win. This is like Emirates Cup sort of stuff, right?
No, Chris, the Conference League shouldn't exist to me. What is the point?
I don't think it does now. I don't think it does now with the new format. I actually think it kills it with the new format. I think it works with the old format.
It's either Europa or Champions League. It used to be UEFA Cup, Champions League. That's how it's always been. It's always been that. They're the two competitions. You got the elite, and then you got like the sort of runners up the third and fourth place. That's how it should be to me.
Yeah.
Like this getting into like having six English teams in the Champions League is outrageous. It's a mockery of it to me. I don't think that exists. I think it should be you have top four, and then the winner of Europa League goes Champions League. That's fine. That makes sense. Having six,
but I think that should take the fourth spot, right?
What's that?
I think it should just be four. It should be four, maximum of four. If you win Europa and you're eighth, you just take the fourth spot. Tough luck.
Yeah. Because I think like it's just getting silly. Like the Conference League, and listen, Chelsea saying, "Oh, we've won them all." You've just won the Mickey Mouse. Literally, there is Mickey. Sorry, it's not even a Mickey Mouse Cup. I think Europa becomes
the shittest of the shittest.
This is Pluto. You're like the side chick. That's what that competition is. I mean, it means nothing to me. Like that. Well done, you won it. We're never going to be in it, or certain teams will never be in it because of where you're gonna finish. So it's just
with the Europa Conference League, right? I don't mind it, but I think with it is that certain teams shouldn't be able to qualify for it. So teams like Chelsea shouldn't be in it. But I love it for the fact that it gives a team like West Ham the chance to win a European trophy when the Premier League's so tough. So I do agree with the competition. I just think certain teams shouldn't be allowed to go into it, like because
they took
Chelsea
a mockery around it, right? They put out their under 21s in quite a few games to rest their players for the Premier League. Like, some of these teams are putting out like their best players, and they've worked hard for it. And Chelsea are taking the piss a bit by sending out matey who's never played a full cap for the first team in his life. And I think in one game they had 9 under 18s playing.
Yeah. I think if you've qualified for the Champions League before, you shouldn't be allowed in the Europa Conference League. So if you've qualified for the Champions League before, maybe in recent history, you just shouldn't be allowed in that competition. It should be for only people that haven't qualified for the Champions League. Maybe something like that. And then it gives all the other teams. Yeah, something like that. And then and then it gives teams like West Ham, like if Brighton get into it, like Crystal Palace are in Europa, But if they got into it, like they've never traveled Europe, so it gives all of them teams a chance to travel Europe. But you shouldn't be getting teams like, imagine if like one day, like, I don't, well, Chelsea is a great example. They're like 2 times Champions League winners in the last 50 years. They shouldn't be allowed in that competition. It should just go to the next available team in the Premier League that is qualified for it, if you see what I mean. So maybe it goes down to a Brentford or something like that maybe finish 9th, but they get into it. Do you know what I mean? That's how I think it should be. I don't mind the
How do you
competition. It's
say
another
it though,
Euro-
right? How do you say? Because then you could, like, if you get into those sort of things, you could say Nottingham Forest aren't allowed in the Champions League. They've won it twice.
Yeah,
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 back in
no,
it,
That's what
you
I'm
know
saying.
what I
In the
mean?
last
Like,
5 years,
ultimately,
in the last
Chelsea
yeah,
are
5
there
years,
because
recent history,
recent,
recent history,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
not to do like
history.
5 year gap
But
or something like that. Otherwise,
mm,
it's just silly. Because yeah, what's the point? We're going to get to a stage where I think like some teams will. I'm not saying they would tank necessarily, but it's like if I'm far off the Champions League, what competition is better to be in to potentially win something next time?
yeah,
Because let it slide a little bit and then go in the Conference League and go and win that. Like, well, do you know what I mean? I just feel like that
yeah,
could potentially play a part at some point. But listen, people are looking at it now. People are understanding the format a little bit better. People obviously strengthening in the summer at this point. And we saw Man City struggle last year. They went and spent 180 million in January, and obviously then suddenly surged back up the table. And actually, all three of us are Arsenal fans here, but there was a point I was looking at going, they're gonna fucking catch us here. Do you know what I mean? Like, because we were going the other way and they'd strengthened, we didn't, and I think it did ultimately not strengthening in January cost us. I think not the Premier League, but I do think a better chance at the Champions League if we had gone and strengthened. I think that's what it cost us. So how important is
I
the
think
summer window?
Edu leaving killed us there. I think that's we aren't. For me, it's all on Edu. That
I think he left because of that. I think that was the reason, though, mate. I don't think him leaving stopped us getting people. I think he stopped us getting people. That's why he's left. That's why we've done that. You know what? You start peeling back, and I'm not making this an Arsenal pod, but if you actually start to look at Edu signings, Rice is to me, Rice is an amazing signing, but low hanging fruit. Do you know what I mean? Like, and when I say low hanging fruit, we've had to spend 100 million. So it's not people joke about us paying half price, but 100 million ain't a bargain, right? And he was one of the best players in the Premier League at the time from outside of the top five or big six, as you
I think you had to be Stevie Wonder not to see that Rice isn't a player,
exactly.
right?
So he's failed experiments of Marquinhos, who I don't even know where he's on loan at the moment. Do you know what I mean? These players.
Sold him.
Yeah, to me, low hanging fruit. Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus were like bargain basement for Man City at the point. They just needed to make fun. Like, he hasn't made any signings to me that have gone, holy shit, where's he come from? Yeah, or we've beaten. So yeah, to me, I think that's one of the biggest issues for me. So I don't know, like, who do you think needs to strengthen the most at this point? And if you want to talk about Arsenal, that's fine. But what sort of players would you like to be seeing in the Premier League?
I don't think we need to. I don't think if we're talking about strengthening the most. I mean, if we're looking beyond Manchester United, I mean, it has to be Manchester United. I think they need, even when you look at what their fans say, they need, a centre forward. They need 2 number 10s. They've done good business already getting Cunha. I think they're getting, is it Mbeumo as well? So that's good business for them. But then even if you look outside of that, wing backs, centre midfielders, maybe a centre back, a goalie. There's a lot of work to do there. And I think obviously Manchester United or Man U have got the biggest job in terms of recovering to where they should be in the Premier League. Obviously, they finished 15th. They're a top 4 challenging for the Premier League team. That's what Manchester United are. So they've got the most work to do and the biggest jump to make. So I think in terms of who needs to strengthen the most, it's definitely Manchester United for me.
They need a big budget, and the way that they're operating, right, cancelling their Christmas parties and doing all of this like madness behind the scenes, sacking half of their staff. They're not. It doesn't scream like they're going to go and spend big money, right? And Amaran is too arrogant, I guess, with changing his style of play. Like, he's got his style of play. That is it. And you're going to stick with this 3-5-2, and that is it. You don't have the players for it, and I think that's where they're at. Why they decreased, because he didn't change his formation to fit the style of players that you play. And I don't think Man United are going to go and spend 200 to 250 million. Bear in mind, that doesn't really get you much in a top four. You probably got, if you're lucky, 4 or 5 players out of 250 million. You won't have much change, and they probably need 9 or 10. And that's just for the starting 11, maybe starting 12, 13 out of there. I think you've probably, like, I could probably rip apart their starting 11 and be left with 2 players if I'm lucky.
But it's a process, right? It's a process. So it's 4 or 5 this window, 2 or 3 in January, 4 or 5 next. It's a process. So they're not going to get it all done. On what you said there, I do think they're going to spend £250 million. I think they could probably spend around that mark. If they make the right sales, I think they'll spend around that mark. But you know what? I've got to say this, because I know there's split opinion on this, but Amorim cannot change the way he plays for Manchester United players. Unfortunately, he can't. He cannot do it, because I think if he does that, right, you've got players that have let down, say, 1, 2, 3 managers. If he then changes to suit them players, what does he achieve? He doesn't achieve anything. He has to in a way, put them out to dry in that formation and say, look, this is the players. This is what they're capable of. You can all see this. We need investment. He has to do that. I agree. He shouldn't be finishing 15th in the league. They shouldn't be losing the games that they're losing. But this is Manchester United players over the last 10, 12 years laid bare. That's what you get. That's what you get if you try and get a tune out of this set of players. Sancho's gone. Rashford's gone. Garnacho's throwing his toys out the pram. This is the players. If this isn't a sign to show the board and the fans that this is the players, then what is? If he crumbles to these players and goes against what he believes, I believe he just ends up like Eric Ten Hag and the manager before that and the manager before that. I think sticking to his guns and dealing with this pain is the best thing you can do. I know that when Arteta come in, he kind of changed it around and tried to get the best out of players and got us to 8th and got us to 8th again and all of this. But I think the way that Amorim done it guarantees you a quicker reaction. It's the pits now. They're on the floor. There's no way, there's no further down they can go. And it's like saying to the fans and the board,
they can get relegated.
They ain't getting relegated, man.
There's
not one team that can come up from that championship and stump up 35 points at the moment.
I think it's make or break for his job, right? Doing that sort of way. Arteta probably prolonged his career at Arsenal because he's made slightly progressions. With Amaran, it's die by the sword. Morgs, you've been a manager, right? You go into a non-league club, right? Bearing in mind, these are all contract players, right? What's the name of club, right? You go into a club, they're all contracted for 2 or 3 years. They've given you a reasonable budget. You like your formation, and I don't know, they've been playing 4-4-2, and you've got your formation. What changes? Is it? What route would you go? Would you go Amorim or would you go Arteta?
You have first off, I'd almost use the element of, I feel like Arteta has pulled on the heartstrings first, so you have to get them to buy in first, especially when they're on contract, because in a way you're fucked. If you go into a team and they're all on contract, you can't just shift it. It's not easy just to shift these out and bring people in. Non-league, where it's majority of the players are non-contract, I can go and get someone in within a week, 7-day approach in you come, right? And move someone on. Whereas with contract, you've got to now get the best of what's there and forget about what you're going to potentially bring in, because it's still potentially bringing them in. So you've got to get the best out of what you've got there. So at the moment, you're going to have to look at all the tape. Bearing in mind, he's got 50,000 staff behind him to look at certain things. So you sit around the table and go, right, this is my system. This is how I know best to win football games. This is the profile of player that needs to play in this position, right? what have you got for me? You know, so then it's like, okay, here's what happens on the field. Great. Here's now my starting 11 or 16 or whatever it is you're going to put in the squad based on the tape. Now, next thing, you're going to have your guy that you've got at Arsenal, right? What's he like off the field? What's he been like? What's his attitude been towards training? What's his attitude been towards his diet, off the field stuff? So you're going, right, okay, can play this, but he's an arsehole. Pull him out. What's the next person? Let him step up into this then. He's not quite as good, but he's probably going to buy in, and I know he's going to turn up on time. He's going to go and do this. So that's, to me, is what he would need to do at the start. That's what Arteta did. If you look what Arteta did, he put together our best team, and then he slowly removed the arseholes. Slowly, one bit at a time. And he brought the next man up, and we got the best out of certain players because they suddenly were able to step up. Almiron, unfortunately, is not afforded this time. And the reason I say this, and I've said this for Man United for a long, long time, Man United are one of the few clubs that float on the stock exchange. So your stock price is going up and down, and people's money are invested in this. And like business, when things aren't performing, what's the first thing that happens when businesses aren't performing? What happens? Recruitment freeze or redundancies.
Mm.
So what have they started doing? They started removing people out of the canteen. They started removing people out of the car park. They started doing that because that's what a business does. So they've already got this dark cloud already. But now you've got to do it with the top performers, which are your players. You know, that's your commodities right there that are actually going to get you to perform. So he's now not afforded this. So he's now got to try and remove people one bit at a time. But if he does that and he removes a Rashford and he removes a Garnacho, but isn't able to go and get those players and they start losing games, then who's the next person out the door? The gaffer. So it's just a vicious cycle for me at Man United, because someone might go and try and do these nice things, but if they're not getting the results, boom. Whereas right now, the best thing that could have happened is what happened last year, where they got to the final or whatever, made a bit of money, have stayed in the league. Man United fans aren't going to want to hear this. But the reality is, this is what's got to happen now for the next sort of 3 to 4 years, at least for me, is, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Man United stay in the league. And because you're always going to... No.
Man United
listen
are
to
not dropping out of the Premier League.
Listen to what I'm saying, though.
We can hope.
Listen to what I'm saying. When I say this, is about, right, stay in the league, so you've got the Premier League, you've got the Premier League status. You've got your Man United. You're always going to attract players, but that's what he should be being told, so that he doesn't have that pressure, so that he can then actually go, right, I can go and build. So you can go and get 2 or 3 to the outside world, whatever. But he needs to not have this pressure, so he can go and get 2 players that he wants in, or 3 players in the summer, 1 in January. There's 4 players. Get 4 out the door. Then the next season, okay, you go and get another 4 players for that season. So 2 years. He's now got essentially 8 players. That is your core of your first 11, based on what you're around. So after 2 seasons, then you see come season 3, that's when you're like, okay, done your bit. Now we're looking for Europe. We're looking for this, and this, and then and in December, let's see where we are. If you're still sitting in 11th, 13th, whatever it may be, bottom end of the table after that season 3, you're out. Do you know what I mean? Because you've now put your stamp on things. That's what I'm trying to say, Mo. I'm not saying that's what Man United are becoming.
I hear what you mean. You're saying the brief. You're saying the brief of the team. You just need to take all the pressure off. It's very difficult with Manchester United to say you're going to take all the pressure off and say stay in the league. I think at minimum, Manchester United always have to be going for the European spots. Yeah. So their aim next season needs to be, they can't have a season like this season, but I think if it's better than this season, so if we're talking top half challenging for Europe, a miracle could happen, or not even a miracle. They could challenge for the Champions League spots. They're playing 1 time a week. If they get the recruitment right, I'm a big Amorim fan. Yeah, I'm an Arsenal fan, of course, but I like Amorim as a manager, and he hasn't just gotten bad overnight. You know what I mean? So I think slowly but surely, but then you've got to get all the fans on board. You've got to get all the board on board. of course, and it's got to be a process of getting back to the top. Anyone that thinks you can, in this modern Premier League, you can do this thing where you're 12th and then all of a sudden you're challenging for the league again. That era is gone because there's too many good teams in the league. There's too many teams that have developed. There's a Newcastle that could, if they go on a good run, they're up second, third. If Brighton showed last season, they're on a good run. They're fourth in the league. Nottingham Forest this season, they're third, fourth in the league. That's a Champions League spot held up for 6 teams that are meant to finish in the top 4, if you see what I mean. So if you've got a random rogue team up there, then already out of the top 6, there's 2 that ain't going to get in there. And then you've got a rogue team in there. So now there's 3 that ain't going to get in there. Do you understand what I mean? So for Man U next season, I just say they go into it, they make their signings. If they get 3 or 4, they say, okay, we want to get into the Europa League next season. And then they take the roller coaster along the way. And I think they've got to be happy with that and build and build and build until they're a solid team that can challenge again.
Do you?
I think they need to set. I think they need to set.
You mentioned Eddie Howe Newcastle there, Mo. I'm looking at his signings that he's done since he was there, and he's been given a time to do that.
Yeah,
without that pressure, right? And I think you make a good point. And sorry, Chris, I know I cut you there, but it's not like, you know, when Wenger was finishing top 4, right? If you look at the teams below it, there was only really one team maybe pushing to get into that. You know, come the end, it was only like 2 teams. We look at it this year. What was it? End of season, was it like 3 or 4 teams that could have, you know, if it gone their way, could have been in a Champions League spot?
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest difference now. Is there's so many more teams that are able to compete, but they've been doing it silently. And what I mean is they've been chipping away, getting the players that they wanted. They haven't changed the gaffer that much. Man United have been chopping and changing styles and all of this, and different who you rate, who you don't rate. So I think that's the biggest thing at this point. You got to look at it like that and go, right, they're too far off. Too far off. Sorry, Chris, go on.
See, no, it's Man United. They've got to be top 10. We're not talking about these are bang average players. These are international players for some of the best international countries that there are out there, right? England, France, Brazil. You know, we're talking. These are not bang average players, right? He needs to get these bang average players that are also acting like bang average players to be, I wouldn't say world class, but be off that. Top 10, like they've had a bad year right off. It happens, right? I think they changed the manager halfway through the season, at the start of the season. He hasn't really brought in the players that he's wanted. The process that you're talking about there, both of you, is pretty much the Arsenal sort of process, right? That, you know, I remember 3-4 years ago, Arteta started the first game, lost to City, lost to Chelsea, lost to Brentford when they first come back into the Premier League, was the favourite to be sacked, and the actual board stood up and goes, no, like, this is a project and we're going to stick with the project, and we understand they believe in the process. I think the difference that Arteta has, he's an Arsenal, ex-Arsenal player, ex-Arsenal captain. People already loved him before he comes in. Amarin's an outsider that's come into in, and he hasn't played on the heartstrings. He's come in very my way or the highway, live by the sword. And I think we need to probably see the board back that decision and go, right, it's probably going to be rough for 3 years. Unfortunately, we don't have £1 billion to go and rip out and build a new team. I think they're maybe the 2nd or 3rd richest club in the world. They've got money to go and do it. They've got one of the biggest fan bases in the world. So they need to get the fans on board. They do need to spend the money to do it. And it will probably take 4 or 5 years. And, you know, I remember the Arsenal days, you know, I know we keep talking a lot about Arsenal, but I remember the Arsenal days when we were 8th and we were getting battered and everyone was tormenting us because we weren't anywhere near Europe. It's going to be like that for a lot of United fans, and they've just got to hold on and just go through the ride, but understand they go through the process and it will take 3 or 4 years, but you need to stick with a manager. You can't get 2 years into this project and go, actually, we don't believe in it anymore, sack the manager, start again, because you're just going to go around in this vicious sort of circle.
Yeah, but if you look at say you look at the top, say, 6 or 7 teams in the league, yeah, the common denominator between all of them is that they've stuck through the managers in the good times and the bad times. And I include Liverpool in that, because there was a point, whether Liverpool fans will agree or not, there was a point where Klopp was getting to finals of competitions and losing, getting close to Manchester City and losing. And they wanted him out. They were saying, oh, he probably ain't going to make it. Then he makes it and he goes on and he makes them a successful club. Yeah, that was a process. Liverpool winning the league last season. Like, this is what's been annoying me. It's like they come out of nowhere. Liverpool got 82 points last season. They didn't come out of nowhere. They've got a solid base. They had a solid manager for many years. And that is the formula to win these big competitions. Newcastle, they dropped out the Champions League, didn't panic. They kept howling. Now they're back in the Champions League. Now they've won a Carabao Cup. The Arsenal, fair enough. Arteta hasn't won anything in his last 5 years, but consistent progression every year. Man City speaks for itself, won everything in recent times. But Guardiola, 9 years, consistency. All the teams that are at the top have shown consistency, gone through bad times and stuck with the manager. And that is what provides you the platform to get to the top and stick there. That's it. You've got to go through bad times. The days of being able to spend, like where Chelsea would be out of it, then they've gone by 3 or 4 of Europe's top players, and then next season they just win it, like when Mourinho won it from 12th or 8th or wherever he won it from. Those days are over. There's too many good, consistent teams to do that anymore. So you just can't do. There's no quick fix.
I think you're right, mate. But we're very much talking about on the pitch and around the pitch, manager, players. I think United's also rotten at the core. You've changed owners. You've got a sporting director in and out. You've got rid of Fergie being in a part of the board. Like, there's just too much. And, you know, this is from owning a football club. It's mad how much off the pitch impacts on the pitch sort of stuff. They do listen to the news. They all have Twitter. They all do listen to this. You know, new managers coming in, new sporting director. Am I in? Am I out? What's going? Like, the strategy's kind of changing. They need to. I think they need to stabilize the foundations before they actually start looking at the pitch, because that's the problem. You get a new owner come in, a new sporting director come in. The sporting director and the manager don't get on for whatever reason. There's conflict there. Then the manager's then got going into the play. It falls on, and I think they need to probably sort the foundations out. And that's come from Sir Cliff, whatever his name is, the owner. Like he needs to set the direction and set the tone and set the message. Kroenke does it very well. I think Todd Boehly, as much as people discredit him, I think he set the tone of what Chelsea is going to be or about. That they're going to be disruptive. And bear in mind, they sold from an owner that, you know, he won everything, and he was take the politics aside, very successful club owner. I think they just need to sort the foundations, and I think it starts at the very top, and then you work down, and then the foundations of the players will be set. I don't even know who the sporting director is at United anymore, if they've got one.
Jason Wilcox. He was appointed this morning, director of football. Jason Wilcox.
Someone's done their pre-notes.
Here he is. I think they're some way off. I just feel like if they remove the manager this year, forget it. Like, they will just be in this vicious cycle for a very, very long time, and until the day that they fluke it. I think you said it, Mo. They could fluke it. I think that's the problem.
Hold on, Sam. So, what do you think about Ange then? What do you think about Ange? Because that's an interesting one. Ange Postecoglou is in that sort of realm, because he's won them a competition. Yeah, they're going through a tough time. Do they sit with Ange and go through this time, and then they keep that stability within the club, or do they change Ange?
Change Ange, and I think that's both ways, in my opinion. I think Ange.
I don't know, mate. I don't know.
When you looked at them lifting the trophy, Ange was there in that Ashley Cole leaning on the side, looking over kind of vibe, right? It had a player to go and grab him to bring him over and be like, "No, you're one." You could just tell that there is a disconnect between the manager and the player from an outsider's point of view. Ange deserves respect. He's won him a trophy. He was the underdog. Everyone was like, United have got this. Spurs aren't doing it. I think it should just be a mutual decision.
He needs to stay.
I think he deserves it. But I also think he's got respect of himself, that he should probably walk away and go, this isn't right for me. I'm not being set up for success here. They're just waiting for me to fail.
Man, I hate saying it because you're an Arsenal fan. You're saying this. Tottenham aren't set up to win. They're set up to be sustainable and profitable, because that's what Daniel Levy has set them up to be. Because you wouldn't have got rid of Mourinho what was it, a week or so before a final. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's the difference? At that stage of the season, what's the difference of moving him on? Because you're still paying his salary, regardless. Yeah. You might as well let him go and try and win you and set you up for a trophy. They didn't set themselves up to do that. For Ange, now, Tottenham should be keeping him just for the reason of get you there till Christmas. If it's still bad, as in league form, is still bad, they're not performing in the Champions League, move them on. You know, what's the deal? To me,
You can't discredit the league table though. They were 1 point, one place above relegation. They played the team that was 1 place above them in the final. They played some team that I've never heard of or don't really ever watch in the semi-final of the Europa. Like,
listen,
you're expected to be in the final with the players that you've got, right?
Listen,
you've got again.
I've said that about Europa. No Champions League teams coming in, but you can't discredit that they
wouldn't be there.
They go all the way and they won it, right? They win and done it. You can't discredit them for going to do that. The league form was horrendous, and this is where all these arguments keep coming up. Who had the better season? If you're talking about a league season, they were horrendous. Like you said, Man United and Tottenham, so bad. But you have to take it for what it is in front of you. What's in front of you? Man United finishing where they finished with no trophies, one of the worst things that could happen. Tottenham,
I think it's hard to compare.
Tottenham haven't won
anything.
Tottenham haven't won anything for such a long time. Them winning a trophy and getting over that, I think, is a good thing for me. I think it's a good thing for Tottenham. So really, he's gone and literally started it again. Now the clock's been reset. He's won it.
Ain't that a great position to be in? And then you bring in a new manager. He's under no pressure to win a trophy. The trophy's been won. That's done. So is this now a good time to say, right, identify the right man? Nothing short term. Identify the right man. You want to adopt his style of play. You want to give him the players. You want to back this manager to get you to the stage where you're a solid Champions League through the league finishing team and you're challenging for trophies. So do they say, okay, we're going to go and get Iriola, we're going to adopt his style of play, we're going to buy him his players, and we're going to stick with this guy throughout the good and the bad for the next 3 years, and we're going to let him build. We've got the trophy, you've got your trophy, and now is the time for us to go and get a manager who we're going to stick with for 3 or 4 years, and we're going to adopt his style of play. We're going to give him the money that's in the bank, and we're going to buy the players that he wants. His expectation over the next 2-3 years is consistent qualification for first Europa and then the Champions League. We know that's difficult, yeah. And from there, we expect him in 3 or 4 years to be at a stage where he's challenging for their big competitions. Is it not a good time to do that?
Mo, imagine I'm trying to think of the right analogy here that won't get me cancelled, right? But you've been saving up all your money all this time. You're keeping an eye on this Ferrari for all this time. You finally have all the money. You've done all the hard work to get all of that cash. You finally are able to buy the Ferrari, but you never get to drive it, and someone else does, and then takes it off.
Yeah. You're talking like a manager, bro. You're talking like a manager.
He's grafted, bro. He's grafted.
Listen,
he's taken all of that shit. He's taken all that shit in the press conferences.
Yeah,
he took all this shit last year.
I agree with you.
I'm going to win something in my second season. And
that's mental.
Whatever.
And this is what I think he should leave, not that he should be fired. I think if I was him, I'd probably walk and go, do you know what? I've done it. This ain't for me. This project ain't for me. And that's what I mean. I think he should leave.
He needs to do Champions League. He needs to. That's what I'm trying to say. Do Champions League and then go off your own back.
For me, you can't compare Arsenal season and Tottenham season. You can't.
No, of course not.
One's playing Denmark and 4th place in Finland, and one's playing PSG of just the best team in Europe, and Real Madrid, who are probably one of the, this is their competition. If you put Arsenal in the Champions League, in the Europa, how would they get on? And if you put Tottenham into the Champions League, how would they get on? It would be a completely different story.
One thing for you guys, because we obviously talk about the big teams here. So my question to you, just on the window, because I think we'll do this topic here. Crystal Palace. What do you do in their situation right now, yeah, listen, we're South Londoners. Do you know what I mean? I'm saying here from a Crystal Palace point of view, we see so many teams. This happens. They get into Europe, and they're like, "Oh shit, we're now playing." They're going to be playing Saturday, Thursday, maybe Thursday, Sunday. You know, they've now got to have a potentially bigger squad here. What do you do? Because are you expected now to try and keep pushing to go as far as you can in Europe, or and do you need to like have a big squad to now try and up the ante and try and finish higher up in the Premier League? But to do so, you're going to have to invest a lot of money potentially, or do you ride with the squad and use, which we all know, yeah, Crystal Palace's academy system, one of the best, right, in terms of producing players. Do you lean on that? Do you spend all the money and go for it? Or do you use this money now just to slowly elevate yourselves to build? What do you do? What do you do here? Because I think
What's your goal as the club? That's my if I was the manager, I'd go to the chairman and go, what is the goal? Are we just going to have a year, enjoy it, and take it as, we understand it's a bit lucky? Or are we going to be are we going to start to, is this the next step to be ambitious? If this is the next step to ambitious, give me your checkbook. We're going. And we go and we recruit. Because now you can go and tap up those players that are wanting Europe football. No one would have, I'm sure some of these players don't even know where Crystal Palace is. Now they've put themselves on the map, right? I'm talking like, go and find these players that are playing in the Belgium league or second half of the French league. That are these little gems that you could probably pick up for 20 or 30 mil. And, the Brightons have done a great job in their recruitment strategy. Those sort of like, go and find these players that we can bring in because we can now offer them Europe football because they would have never have got that before. Or we go and get players from, Jack Grealish, for instance. We go and get Jack Grealish on a year-long loan because we can offer him Europe, we can offer him a starting place, and we can offer him a place to revive his career.
Jack Grealish in London would probably be the worst thing ever for his career.
I'm just throwing out a name, right? It's only because I was looking at him, but I think it would be a good move for him. Like he's not going to go back to Villa. Go and be what Jack's really good at is being a big fish in a small pond, and I think Palace would be a great thing for him. Like Palace, I watch them a lot. I really like their way of football, and really impressed with them again in the final. And I think actually they probably deserve it. If they played that game again, would the results change? Probably not. After the first 20, 25 minutes, and they survived it, actually looked like after about 30 minutes, Palace could do this. I remember all the WhatsApp group. I remember the first 30 minutes, like, this is tough. This is a hard watch. You got out of that, you survived it, and you look good. Mateta's had a phenomenal season, and I think it's kept their players. I think if they didn't get that, Eze's gone, Mateta's gone. Is it not Ward-Prowse? Who's the Wharton's going to
Adam Wharton,
going to like they're all gone. I think they've just saved their club. I think
with Palace, right? They've won the FA Cup, but as you said, it was by no fluke, right? I think when you've got a manager the level of Glasner, you've got the opportunity to push on. No offense to someone like Sean Dyche or Sam Allardyce, or if they win the FA Cup and they bump and bruise their way to winning the FA Cup, you go, oh, maybe we don't back him. Maybe we stabilize the club. Maybe we go through the youth and build the club up that way. The thing is, when you have a manager the level of Glasner, he's proven in Europe already, right? He's got a good core of players there. I think they might lose Gahey, but they've got a good core of players there that they could keep. If there's one time you want to make that jump from maybe being a team that is mid-table or occasionally fights relegation to try and push on, take that time to try and push on, it's with a manager like Glasner at a time like this. Palace are a solid Premier League club. They got money in the bank. Yeah, they do so well with buying players from the lower leagues, and they kick on the Elises, etc., and then they sell them on. I've got a great track record of promoting players throughout the youth team and moving them on to big clubs, Wan-Bissaka, etc. So all of this can come into play. But if they want to make the step, and I'd say, is it the step to say a Brighton maybe just above them? To that step where Brighton are now most seasons going for the Europa League spots, etc. If they want to make that step, now is the time. Give him 3 or 4 players, stick with him. And if this season don't go that well and you end up out of Europe, this is when you stick with him again and you say, we're going to continue to back you. Next season, can we go all the way in the Carabao Cup? Can we push on and be 8th, 7th? Can we have a season like that? And this is what I mean about stability within Premier League clubs. The only problem Palace have is that the big boys might say, hey, Glasner, do you want to come here? And then it's difficult because they've backed him to the hilt and now they've got to find another manager of that level to continue them kicking on. So it's a difficult situation for them. And I know they
That's why I
lost.
think you saved their club, Mo. I think it has, and the player and the
Mm.
manager. I think that is right, because where's Gay going to go? He was supposed to go Tottenham.
I think he's going to go
Tottenham
Liverpool,
don't offer.
Gay. I think he's going to go Liverpool. That's just my hunch. I think he's going to go Liverpool.
But
Gay.
how? Like the 2 centre backs are. He's going to go and want to start in position. Their 2 centre backs have been great this year. Like who's going to go and pay 70, 80 million for him and offer him something that he's? I think maybe. I think it's delayed everything now another year. And like you said, Mo, is back your point, right? Is give him the keys and see what happens. And I think like you've saved the manager because he was. If you didn't get Champions League, Europa League, you probably lose your manager. You probably lose Gay. You probably lose Eze. You probably lose you probably lose 5 or 6. You could have been cleared out, and then you go through that process again where you survive relegation, and then you climb up the ladder. I think they'll be a top 10 team because now the players have got belief behind them. They're trusting the process. You know, they're always the underdog.
It's so good if they kept
emotionally. I want it. Yeah, emotionally, I want them to do well as well, right?
The only thing I'll say, and this is based on what we've said on the pod, is that they've won that cup now, yeah. And do the club think, well, you've got that cup, yeah, that's it. Like, you know, like we weren't expected to win that. You've got that cup. You've got your trip around Europe. Do we now just say, let's not go crazy. Let's not put ourselves in any problem. Let's just stabilize again and make sure Palace is a long-term Premier League team. But then at the moment, yeah, this is a good time because the 3 teams coming up are normally so bad, yeah, that you can survive even if you haven't had a great season. Do you understand?
I don't think they're not in my relegation. And like you said, they've survived it for the last eight years. They've survived, and they were that team that went up, then come back down. They were too good for the champ and not good enough for the Prem, right? They've had that flowing.
They shouldn't spend it. They shouldn't spend it now. I'll tell you the reason I say this. They're going to Europe. You're saying you attract the players because you're playing in Europe. Well, if you have a bad season in Europe or you have a bad league season and then not you in Europe the next time, you're going to lose your new players and your old players who have an even bigger project to deal with. Whereas actually, if you almost saved the money, of course you're going to spend some money. Of course they're going to invest. But if you don't go crazy, like Mo just said, like, okay, we've got this trophy now. We've done that. We've played in Europe. It's a good day out for all. I mean, Croydon in Europe's going to be amazing. Carnage at the same time. But I think at this point, it's like, don't do that. But still go and look for your players in Belgium and here and there, where Europe's not necessarily the attraction. Playing in the Premier League's the attraction. And people know who Crystal Palace are. So then they build up to being Brighton. Don't go and all spunk it straight away in this first season. This is now your foundation, and you build on this briefly. Use the money that you're going to get from Europa to go and build again the following season. You might not be in Europe again, but at least you're being sustainable, and you can go and pick off certain players. You pick off the better players from the ones that maybe do get relegated, because that does happen. And then they build this squad that, again, I still think will be 2 seasons where they're then challenging for Europa spots, not to try and do it for the cup. But that's where I think they do it. Don't go and do it all in one season, because I've seen that happen. I remember, do you remember the old Leeds? Leeds did it and then got relegated.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, don't go and do that. You saw what happened off the back of that. So Palace just need to use this a nice foundation. Yes, it's like
the problem is they can have bad at both, right? You need squad depth. And you can have a bad league because you're going for Europa, and you can have a bad Europa because you've saved players for the league. So you could be on the brink of just a poor performance. And I just think they do need depth of the amount of games that you're going to be playing. They probably do need to add 3 or 4 where they can rest. I think strikers are all right. You've got Eddie and Mateta, and they only typically play one. You've got Sarr that comes through as well. So I think they're fine. I think they probably need to add another winger. And maybe, probably a cover at centre back. They've done a great job, but I don't see much past the 2 guys that they've got. for the amount of games that they're going to be playing. So, but look, I wish them all the best, and I can't wait for those fans to come and experience Tiger on a Thursday night in Croydon.
It's so funny. I tweeted when they won it that they got to open Croydon back up for this. They got to open all Tiger and everything.
Yeah, I had shush Tiger. I threw out bring back Escapade. Bring back Escapade.
Oh, the best of the best.
Yeah.
The best of the best.
Someone told me Granaries is still open. I was like, what? Still
Dice
going?
Bar, man. Yeah, Dice Bar. What was the one with the little strip pole in next to it?
Nah, that's your eyes only, Chris. That's on your own, mate.
Oh, what? I'm in here again. And then Tiger. Wow, what a great place.
Yeah.
Bring it back.
Unbelievable. But boys, lovely conversation with you lads. Obviously, this week. Obviously, for anyone that's tuning in the first time, this is the pilot. So be sure to tune in next week. We will go again for episode 2. We'll be discussing things like new throwbacks for jerseys, football boots always making their return as well. We'll get the boys to do a bit of a early prediction as well for who might be top goal scorer, who might win the league. And Mo kind of just alluded that anyone coming up is going to get relegated again. So we know his relegation prediction already. But we'll dive into that and all the new topics. And you'll find us all on your usual outlets, where it's Spotify, Google, Apple Store, and tune in on YouTube as well. We can see some of our, I'll say faces. I won't say lovely faces at this time. But that has been No Ball All Talk.
Good one.